Thank you for checking out this special presentation of Lone Star Internet Radio's podcast. Lone Star Internet Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station. This podcast is a recording of the 2016 Montgomery County Primary Candidate Forum, broadcasted live from the Crichton Theater in downtown Conroe. This following podcast covers the candidates for Congressional District 18. Before we get to the candidate presentation, please take a moment and hear a word from a title sponsor of Lone Star Internet Radio, the Spirit of Texas Bank.
Owning a business means lots of things, including accepting every decision ultimately is your responsibility. The ups and downs, rewards and setbacks come with the territory. Spirit of Texas Bank understands. We started out with a dream too and chose the best place on earth to do business, Texas. To say we have a special understanding of the Texas spirit toward business isn't bragging, it's a fact, and it's our name. It doesn't matter if your office is the dash of your truck or the executive suite. Every day you need a bank. A place to put your profits, get your loans, process your payroll, expand, grow, buy, and plan your next move. You don't need excuses from a bank. You need understanding and fast action. Spirit of Texas Bank. All across Texas and now with locations in Conroe, the Woodlands, Magnolia, and Tomball. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Good evening, thanks for coming. My name is Craig McMichael. I decided to run for this office because after serving 10 years in the Marines and doing 3 combat tours, I came home to Texas to find my government in shambles. I was very disappointed with the size and scope of the federal government, the massive debt, and I couldn't find anybody else that wanted to run for this office. So I stood up when everybody said it was impossible, Brady was unbeatable, and I started campaigning. And I made an impact. I got 32.1% of the vote in the last congressional primary, and that encouraged me to run again. And so I decided to come here tonight to talk to you about my ideas of constitutional freedom, our rights in the Constitution as described are gifts given to us by God. Our government is supposed to protect them and not squander them. God bless you, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. Mr. Brady, you have 1 minute.
I feel like the people who ran Obamacare built my phone. Maybe that's why I'm having trouble getting through. Thank you, Dwayne, Melanie, for having me here to the candidate forum. It is an honor to serve you. I wish I could be there. As you know, a month ago, I was selected to lead the Ways and Means Committee. Tomorrow, the House is going to approve my legislation to make permanent more than $500 billion in tax cuts for our families, the first real laws to rein in the IRS, and the first anti-fraud provision, $7 billion worth of savings, to try to get the waste, fraud, and abuse out of some of our tax provisions. You know me. I'm a pro-family, pro-small business conservative who's not afraid to take the tough votes to turn our country around, even if it's unpopular. I have a 95% lifetime conservative voting record, a 100% pro-life voting record, endorsed by the NRA. And as you know, I will support over and over and over again our troops, our military, and our veterans. I never moved to Washington. I live in Montgomery County.
Thank you. Mr. Brady, the first question is to you. You have 1 minute. Polls show most voters don't think government works. What would you do to fix the underlying structures and systems that seem to be broken?
Francine, help me with that, please. The question?
Polls show most voters don't think government works. What would you do to fix the underlying structures and systems that seem to be broken?
The answer lies in the Constitution. Our founding fathers envisioned a House of Representatives who would pass their best ideas, in my case, conservative ideas, a Senate that would pass its best ideas, and you would work to try to find common ground. That's what's missing today. For too many years under this president, the Senate blocked every piece of legislation the House produced, whether it was to balance the budget, rein in the EPA, stop the president's executive orders. And my frustration is that, we have the House, we have the Senate, yet all those bills are still bottled up in the Senate. I still believe the Constitution works, and I'm hopeful that here over the next week, the House and Senate and President, I hope, will sign these tax cuts and these measures to rein in the IRS. The Constitution works if members of Congress will listen and follow it.
Thank you. Mr. McMichael?
Can you repeat that
Sure,
question?
sure. Polls show most voters don't think government works. What would you do to fix the underlying structures and systems that seem to be broken?
Yeah, well, the polls are right. The government doesn't work because Washington, D.C. has become a cartel with career politicians that are more concerned about their own power in that government than they ever were about our freedoms. The first thing we could do is awaken the people to their true responsibility in this republic. We have the power. We can make the change. Without us, nothing will ever happen, and we need to start with the term limits on Congress. It is time for a constitutional amendment to limit the terms for the United States Congress and the U.S. Senate. You start with that, you get men and women with fresh ideas in Washington, D.C., who haven't been bought out by the lobbyists, who haven't sold themselves for their own power, and you will restore your government again.
Thank you. Mr. McMichael, next question, you'll start. If a Democrat wins the 2016 presidential election, how would you push a conservative congressional agenda while ensuring the measures would not be vetoed?
You can't ever ensure that nothing will be vetoed. The president has that authorization on the Constitutional Article 1, Section 7. What you can do is push legislation, and if he vetoes it, you can send it right back to him. At some point, as Christian conservatives in this country, we have to make a stand. We have to hold our values true to our heart, and we have to do what's right. We can't let a president be a dictator of this country. It's time for us to stand up and realize that the United States Congress is the true power to write laws and enforce regulation on this government, and if we, the people, demand it, they will do it.
Thank you. Mr. Brady? Sure. Mr. Brady, if a Democrat wins the 2016 presidential election, how would you push a conservative congressional agenda while ensuring the measures would not be vetoed?
You know, there's not going to be a Democrat president in 2017. This country can't have another leader like this one who ignores the Constitution, who makes up laws, ignores others, and goes around the checks and balances of the Constitution. I know from my standpoint, the conservative values I hold on a balanced budget, on strengthening the military, fully funding our military at every turn, getting Washington out of our lives. We're delivering that out of the House today. What we need is a Senate who will be equally aggressive, who will put these strong positions on the president's desk. But in my view, we're going to have a conservative, pro-family, limited government president who's not only going to lead, not only going to sign these bills, he's going to help work with us to lead.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Next question is for you. Since you say a Democrat will not win the White House, if a Republican wins the presidential election, what major agenda items should be the top priorities for the GOP?
Well, I'm absolutely convinced, Andy, that the strongest threat to America is the deficits this nation runs. I also believe that from the chairmanship of the Ways and Means Committee, House Republicans have already identified 5 priorities to turn this country around. 4 of them begin in the Ways and Means Committee. Leading the fight to fix this broken tax code, replacing Obamacare and tearing it out by its roots, reforming welfare to get people back to work, and taking the tough stances to save Social Security, Medicare. Those are the big issues and the big challenges that face our country, and along with the strong national defense. Those have to be our priorities.
Thank you. Mr. McMichael?
Yeah, you know, debt is the biggest problem in this nation. If we economically bankrupt ourselves, we will destroy this country. The way you fix the debt, though, is you don't depend on the tax code. You get rid of it. You abolish the IRS. Actually, the 16th Amendment that authorized the income tax is a violation of your constitutional rights. The 4th Amendment's clear that you should be secure in your private property against illegal search and seizure. When the government seizes your income before you receive it, they're violating your rights. You pass the fair tax, it's consumption tax at the state level. Next thing you could do that's near and dear to my heart is you could fix the VA. Right now we have 8,000 veterans committing suicide every single year. That's 22 a day. It's 1 every 65 minutes. We send these men and women off to war to fight for us. It's time that we stand up and fight for them at home and fix the Veteran Affairs Office.
Thank you. Mr. McMichael, next question, you'll start. What is your long-term budget solution so we don't continue to raise the debt ceiling and kick the can down the road?
Yeah, that's simple. You start with the fair tax. Once you pass the fair tax, you implement a zero-based budgeting system on the federal government to stop the massive growth, and then you reevaluate all the programs that are no longer needed because they're unconstitutional. The federal government's allotted 18 enumerated powers, and they've grown far beyond their scope. It's time to rein in Department of Education, Department of Energy, EPA, Homeland Security. These are not government agencies that are authorized constitutionally. We the people can demand it. It's our kids' future. It's our generation. It's time that we stand up and fight this war against our own government.
Thank you. Mr. Brady, the question was, what is your long-term budget solution so we don't continue to raise the debt ceiling and kick the can down the road?
Yeah, the House Republicans and Conservatives already passed that long-term budget approach. We are the only budget that balances, that shrinks the size of government, that fully funds our military and our veterans, that sunsets obsolete agencies. And the budget I support doesn't merely balance the budget. That's not good enough. We have far too much national debt. Our budget envisions and sets a glide path, a straight glide path to paying off America's debt. No one talks about having a debt-free America, and we need to have exactly that. And so what we need, frankly, is a Senate and a White House that will work with us to make those cuts and, again, get this economy going, because budget cuts will get us halfway there, but to pay down the debt, we need a much stronger economy.
Thank you. Mr. Brady, next question is for you. As U.S. Rep, what can or will you do to help repeal the Windfall Elimination Act, which prevents Texas public school teachers from receiving most of their Social Security benefits, which they may have paid prior to entering teaching once they retire?
Yeah, thank you. This is a perfect example of how government gets it wrong. If you're working as a teacher, police, or firefighter, and you've earned a pension at work, but you also have worked a second job, or maybe weekends, or that first career before you became a teacher. Right now, under a 30-year law, government will dock up to $400 a month from your Social Security. I've introduced legislation, and the leader of legislation, to eliminate the windfall elimination provision, replace it with equal treatment to make sure our teachers and firefighters, police are treated fairly and they are rewarded to their Social Security. And it will restore more than half of the Social Security that's been cut in the current formula. So I hope, as Chairman of Ways and Means Committee, to move that legislation through the House and through the Senate. And my focus is going to be on next year, and I'm hopeful we can get it done. They've earned 2 pensions. They should get them.
Thank you. Mr. McMichael?
Yeah, only in our current federal government would they believe they could take something that belongs to you. You worked hard for your Social Security. It's your money. No government agency, no government law or regulation should be able to take that from you. Whatever is required to repeal or do away with the Windfall Act needs to happen.
Thank you. Next question, you start, Mr. McMichael. What immigration policies would you implement regarding both legal and illegal immigrants?
Now, I'll start with illegal. Illegal immigration is a massive problem in this country. First thing we need to recognize is we are at war with Islam. I fought 3 combat tours over there. They hate us. They want to kill us. It's time to address this issue. In 1986, Ronald Reagan passed the Immigration Reform Care Act. It's against the law to hire somebody that's not a citizen of this country. If our government just enforced the laws, we could fix the illegal immigration problem. Legal immigration is also a problem because you have a lot of good, hard-working people that want to come to this country, and it's almost impossible. We need to readdress the legal immigration system and allow people an easier path to become American citizens and realize our dream.
Thank you. Mr. Brady?
Andy, could you say that again? I apologize.
Sure. What immigration policies would you implement regarding both legal and illegal immigration?
Well, first you've got to shut the back door of illegal immigration so you can keep open the front door of legal immigration. So those who want to come to America, who want to have part of this American dream and contribute to our country can. You're welcome, but we insist that you come through the front door of legal immigration. That back door is wide open. And since I've been in Congress, we've tripled the number of border agents, built nearly 700 miles of border fence. And here later this week, we're going to add another 1,000 border agents. And that's not enough, because we've got to shut off the magnet of jobs, of welfare benefits. We've got to stop having that open border sign for the rest of the world. In fact, our house, this house, me, have passed 3 bills to stop President Obama's illegal, unconstitutional executive orders. All 3 bills are sitting in the Senate today. And in my view, Obama has failed in his war against, and it's not a war.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Brady, you get first dibs at this next question. Since you say a Republican will win the White House in 2016, what Republican candidate do you support for president and why?
You know, Andy, my view in the primaries is to let our Republican voters have their say, and then to fully fund and fully back that nominee. And we're going to have a Republican who's going to capture the imagination of this country. Who I look for in a candidate, you know, I want a pro-family, a pro-small business conservative who will tackle the big issues, the tough issues. I want someone who's going to fight for limited government, and I don't want someone who's just angry. I want someone who's got a positive vision for America. I'm convinced we've got several candidates who fit that bill, but at the end of the day, we are going to spend years digging out from under this president. We need a strong, conservative, pro-family Republican to do that.
Thank you. Mr. McMichael?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of Ted Cruz. I believe it's time for a president that can quantify the Constitution to the people, actually stands up and enforces it, and unlike most people serving in Washington today, understands it.
Thank you. We appreciate your time, and now we're going to allow 1 minute for closing statement. Mr. McMichael, you start.
Thank you for coming out tonight. You know, you've heard a lot of things. What you always hear from Washington, D.C. is excuses on why they can't get things done. I believe the greatest resource this nation has ever had is the American people ourselves. It's time that we stand together and reclaim our republic. You want a congressman in Washington, D.C. that doesn't refuse or doesn't accept failure, refuses defeat, and stands up and argues with everybody there that's robbing you blind. It's time for a combat Marine that will go there and make a change. God bless you, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Mr. Brady?
You know, I wasn't sent to Congress to be popular. I was sent to Congress to take the tough votes to get this country turned around, whether it makes me popular or not. We've got to get this country turned around, and I think one of our biggest problems, there are too many people in Washington and too many candidates who have their finger in the air, who are frightened, afraid to do the right thing. I take the tough votes, especially to fund our military and to get this country turned around. And I always say to people, I listen, I'm in my community, I work hard for my constituents, but even if you don't agree with me, I'm going to keep fighting for your conservative values. God bless you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you for listening to the special broadcast of the 2016 Montgomery County Primary Candidate Forum. This was an open invitation event to all candidates and was broadcasted live from the Crichton Theater. If you have any questions or comments for Lone Star Internet Radio, or you would like to sponsor Lone Star Internet Radio, please contact the station online at irlonestar.com or our Facebook page, Lone Star Internet Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station, broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas. We would also like to thank the title sponsor of Lone Star Internet Radio, the Spirit of Texas Bank, Lone Star Internet Radio, and the Spirit of Texas Bank, serving the community of Montgomery County.